New Jersey Herald was also posted on the Sparta Township website and the bulletin board in accordance to all provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. It's a practice of this board to salute the flag. Please rise and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marissa, you could call the roll, please.
John Finkelty,
Present.
Michael Josephic,
Here.
Richard LaRufa,
Here.
Mark Scott,
Yes.
Lana Tenieri,
Here.
Chairman Kenneth Larry,
Here.
Glenn Keats.
I am here.
We have one resolution to be memorialized tonight, the Sparta Evangelical Free Church, application 1-24 for a use variance. Board will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Marissa, please call the roll.
Michael Josephic,
Yes.
Richard LaRufa,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Abstain.
Lana Tenieri,
Yes.
Chairman Kenneth Larry.
Yes. And just for the items on the agenda
Mr. Chairman,
tonight.
could I just correct one thing, and it's my fault?
Oh, yeah.
The only people that vote on a memorializing resolution are those that voted in favor of the board's action that it took. So Mr. Scott shouldn't have his name even called because he didn't vote to approve it. And that's fine. So I just want to make sure the record stays nice and clean.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mark.
The items on the agenda tonight, we have a 7-Eleven extension of time. We have a Rich Barrick C variance. After that, this board will have an executive session, and after our session is done, we'll open it to the public for comments on items that are not on the agenda. And also, we do not hear any new applications after 9:30, and we adjourn at 10 p.m. sharp, which I don't think will be a problem tonight in any event. All right, Mr. Duval, for 7-Eleven, if you can come forward, and how can we help you? And please speak clearly and directly into the microphones. We have to have a recording for the state.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Tubell, attorney for the applicant. It's been some time since I was here and presented. As you know, when we had the application here, we spent a lot of time on the project with the neighbors and the board. And I look back at the original resolution, it was actually approved like 2 months before the pandemic. So between the pandemic, 7-Eleven purchasing Speedway, which caused them to have some financial pullback on some new stores, they require this last extension, and the last extension is really needed for the following reason. They are now in the process of relocating the local franchisee that runs the store. They have to relocate this person during construction in order for them to build the store so the franchisee can still earn a living during the 6 months or so of construction. They have now found a location for that person in a neighboring county, and that's been worked out. We have all of our approvals, though, as your engineer can tell you, we got our DEP approvals, we have resolution compliance, we have not sat on doing those obligations, so those have all been done. So the goal is to get this last extension and hopefully start construction either in the summer or before the ground gets cold. We actually did originally apply for our building permits, so we just have to renew that application, which we hope to do shortly. And hopefully, we'll get the store built relatively quickly.
I have to say that I've been on this board many years, and I haven't seen many one-year extensions 3 times. So I was getting a little curious, because if we have to do another one-year extension, that would probably break the record, but you're pretty sure.
Yes, and I spoke to,
It's on its way to be done.
yes, and I spoke to the client multiple times about it, because personally, we spend so much time as a board on this and as a group, and I really want to see it built, all the landscaping improvements that were required, all the building improvements that were required. I'd like to personally see it be built as well. So I spoke to them, and they assured me that they hope to start before the ground gets cold on the process.
Because I know it goes back to 2014, if I'm correct, right?
Now, our approval on this was 2020. Our resolution was adopted on January, I actually had it here, It was literally right.
January 8th, council, I got the resolution.
Yeah, yeah, it was literally right before, 2 months before the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so, any questions, Glenn, board members?
The only question I would have is, Dave, as far as you know, nothing's changed under the ordinance that would affect them at all with the
No, I'm-
approvals that Jason. got
I'm
from
not
his
aware of
clients.
any zone change in that area or anything else that would affect what they already developed.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman. That's all you had to hear.
Okay, thank you. Board, will entertain a motion approving the extension
We should
time.
just note, Ken, that there's no public here, I don't think, on this
For that,
application. At least I don't think Dan is going to be, Dan's smart enough to know not to stand up.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion for the extension for 7-Eleven.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Marissa, please call the roll.
John Finkelty,
Yes.
Michael Joseph,
Yes.
Richard LaRufa,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Yes.
Lennon Tenieri,
Yes.
Chairman Kenneth Larry.
Yes. All right, Mr. DeVell, good luck again.
Yeah, listen, I want to see it go up because of all the time we spent on it.
All right, thank you.
You also wanted one of their hot dogs, you told me, didn't you?
Some of us were in high school at the time.
At the Richard Barak application, please come forward.
We haven't, oh, he brought his own easel. I didn't know.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Benkendorf from the law firm of Askin and Hooker, representing the applicant, who is seated behind me if there are any questions for him. We're here this evening to discuss 65 Ridge Road, Block 29001, Lot 3. It's a 10-acre lot in
Mr.
the...
Bergendorf, Glenn, you want to qualify the, Mr. Graham, is that?
Dan.
Yeah.
Mr. Graham, would you raise your right hand, please? Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in the proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God?
I do.
And who might you be?
Thomas Graham, Graham. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is current. I'm a partner in the firm Dykstra Walker Design Group. I've been a licensed professional engineer for about 30 years. I have testified in front of this board, although the last time it was via Zoom during the pandemic. And I've testified in Sparta, most of Sussex County, Bergen, Passaic, Warren, Morris counties. I've been qualified as an expert on every occasion.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? And you think we should swear in Mr. Barak? If we have questions down the line, we could do it now, too?
Let's see how you do.
Yeah. And then just the format, after you present your case for the applicant, and you're finished with that, we'll open it up to this board and our professionals who have comments on, and any issues with the testimony, et cetera. And then after we're finished, we'll open it to the public.
Understood. Thank you,
Before I get
Chairman.
started, is this the best place for it, or would you rather I have it in the middle?
Mark and Landon, can you see that from there, too, or not?
Maybe move it back. a
Maybe
little,
move it
Tom.
back a little bit, it should
Thank
be okay.
Look at that.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Tom, keep your voice up. Let's just make sure. Okay,
Okay,
yep.
All right, so despite the property being 10 acres, and among 4 pre-existing non-conforming variances that are already on the property, the applicant is before the board this evening seeking 2 additional variances to build a detached garage. Those 2 additional variances include, 1, the garage will be in the front yard, which is prohibited for an accessory structure, and the second one is a side yard setback, which requires 15 feet, and I believe we have 10.6. But I do believe that this property is going to qualify, based on the testimony from our expert, that the variances are permitted pursuant to hardship. So, Mr. Graham, without further ado, if you can take them through the property and the request.
okay, so the exhibit that I have in front of you is the full site layout plan, sheet 404 of the plan set that was submitted to the board, there's been no changes to it. So we're here tonight for block 29001, lot 3, more formally known as 65 Ridge Road. It's 10.68 acres and located in the RR, or rural residential zone. Generally rectangular in shape, with a stem portion that's about 175 feet wide and 200 feet deep. The overall property dimensions are 1,060 feet deep by 410 feet wide. The property also has frontage along a paper street, the rear corner, and also the old Ogden Mine Railroad line. The majority of the site is not appropriate for development or really accessible by the homeowner. There are two major easements which bisect the property, a 200-foot wide JCP&L easement and a 100-foot wide public service and electric gas easement. And then so on this plan, north is to the bottom of the sheet. So those are to the east of the developed area. And then just west of those easements is a pond and a stream and wetland areas. The pond is classified as a Category 1 water, so it's afforded a 300-foot riparian zone. The wetlands that are in that area would also have the biggest or widest transition area that the DEP has, and that would be 150 feet. Excuse me. So that really takes away about 90% of the property for being able to be developed. The area where the existing dwelling, his pool, his backyard, his decks, his driveway, and his septic system are all in the front stem. It's almost a flag lot, if you look at it that way. And that area is approximately an acre that we have developed. So the site is accessed by a paved driveway from Ridge Road to the existing garage, which is attached to the dwelling. The rear yard, again, has decks and an above-ground pool in the back. And then once you get past the pool area, it really slopes away and is very steeply sloped. So that's why this property was developed closer to the road than in the center of the property. The existing septic system is located in the front yard area, right in the middle. Topographically, again, portions of the site are in the more gentler slope areas. There's elevation 1255 at the road, 1249 at the garage, and then behind the pool area, it's 1230, and from there, then it really crashes down to that wetland environmental area in the back. So everything generally slopes from the road through the property to the back. When we look at the bulk requirements, the property meets all of the bulk requirements for the RR zone, with the exception of lot width. 200 feet is required. We have 175 feet. Lot frontage, again, 200 feet is required, and we have 175 feet. The northerly side yard, which is on the lower portion of the page, is 37 feet, where 50 feet is required, and then the southerly side yard is 33.3 feet, where 50 feet is required. So even though this site is 10 acres, the developable area is really narrow and doesn't really match up with the RR side yard setbacks. So those are all pre-existing non-conforming conditions. There are a couple of existing sheds and outbuildings at the easterly end of the property over by the old Ogden Mine Road. Those, it's been determined, did not belong to the applicant, and we're going to have the neighbor remove them from our property. Again, the existing nonconformities are due to the shape of the property. Pushing the dwelling back would have required steep slopes disturbances and a more difficult construction. The applicant today is proposing a 3-bay garage for his car collection. The proposed location results in variance conditions for its location in the front yard. Accessory structures are not allowed in the front yard. And for side yard setback, we have 10.6 feet, where 15 feet is required for an accessory structure. And the location that we chose for the site is really based on the existing site constraints. The flattest part of the property is up in the front. We avoid I'm going to switch over to plan sheet 1 of the set, the site layout plan. It's a blow up of just the area that we're talking about. And you can see that the proposed garage is the gray rectangle that's there. So we proposed it in the flattest part of the property to avoid any slope, to minimize disturbances, and to minimize any potential tree removal. You can see we had the mature trees located, and we kind of found an area that we don't have to knock down any trees. Lost my spot. Okay, so again, we're proposing a 3-bay garage. The location is based on the topography, the trees. We are outside of the riparian zones, which is the 300-foot buffer to any water course. Not only is there a water course on our property, but there is another pond or lake on the property across the street, and that riparian zone comes almost to our front line. So the riparian zones are just a narrow width where we can locate it that is really outside of the jurisdiction of the DEP. The entire rest of the property is under the jurisdiction of the DEP. We are also outside of the wetlands and any wetland transition areas. We use the 150-foot transition area, which is the greatest one that the DEP could provide. And even if our wetland line is off by about 200 feet, we're still outside of the wetlands and the transition area that would be associated with that. And the wetlands are down at the bottom of the hill where the stream is and where the pond, and it's steeply sloped. So I'm confident that where the wetlands shown is where they are and that this property is outside of any wetlands or transition areas. But again, it's an environmental consideration that forced all of the development up towards the road. So that just leaves a pocket in the front yard between the existing house and the roadway. Then we also had to take into consideration the location of the existing septic system, which is in the grassed area in the front yard. We can't put the garage too close to the septic system because we have to maintain the separation distances that the state requires from a structure to a septic field. So that's why we put it where we did on the opposite side of the driveway, in the front yard, and it's set back away from the driveway. This is, the doors of the garage are gonna be on the front, right? And that, those garage doors are perpendicular to the driveway. So we set the base of the garage 30 feet from the far edge of the driveway. When you're designing a new house and you have a side entry garage, 30 feet from the edge of the driveway to the face of the building is the minimum that you use so that a car can pull in and make a 90-degree turn and pull into the bay square. So that's why the location is as far away from the driveway, pushing it as close to the rear lot line as we did. So from a practical, functional reason, that's why it is set as far away from the driveway as it could be. So those are the reasons for the location and really the variances that are associated with it. It's the lot constraints, both environmental and practical, and the condition of existing improvements, or location rather, of existing improvements, specifically the septic system, which forced our hand to put it in this area. That's really the bulk of the testimony for why the garage is where it is. I'd like to go through Mr. Simmons' report, if that's okay.
Well, we'll do that after our board. And,
Okay.
Does the applicant want to say anything at this point, or do you have any more information, Mr. Bergendorf?
Yeah, just that the jungle gym has been removed.
Yeah, the jungle gym, which was referenced in Mr. Simmons' report, has been
Yeah.
removed. Thank you for reminding me of
That was it.
And also, the structure will not have any water service, will not have any bathrooms to it. It will have electricity, and there will be heaters, many split systems will be provided so that the garage structure does have. And we have also been in contact with the JCP&L, and we have an active application with them. There is an existing utility pole. They may require that the pole be relocated so the wires don't pass over the roof of the garage, but we've already initiated that process with them. It's a process.
Slow.
So, but we have tried to take care of that. So that's really the bulk of my testimony, and if there's any questions or I can answer anything, I'd be happy to try.
Marissa, you can open to our board. I just had, the NJDEP now, you were speaking about some lines and so forth. Have they been in touch with you, or confirmations or validations of what it is?
We didn't, and again, the pond and stream is part of the survey. It is absolutely going to have a Category 1 designation. That's on the DEP's website. So the maximum buffer is 300 feet. We are outside of that 300-foot buffer where we're proposing the garage. Again, the pond on the other side, same thing. We located it based on the aerial imagery and drew a 300-foot line around it, and it doesn't even come to our property. So we're well outside the riparian zones. And then with respect to the wetlands, again, the wetlands are down by the stream corridor, then it's very steeply sloped. So I don't believe that the wetlands would be 200 feet up a slope. That's not typical wetland topography. And we're well outside of the wetlands and the associated 150-foot buffer by about 200 feet. So this is not a DEP application in my mind.
Then what is the construction materials for the garage? What is that going to?
It's going to be stick-built. This is the architectural plan, I believe, that was submitted. I'm not the architect, I didn't prepare it, but it's, vinyl sided, probably colors to match the existing dwelling, asphalt shingled roof, and stick-built. It's going to be relatively attractive and will blend in with the
Blend in.
existing property.
And then the sheds, any slabs under the shed that's going to be removed?
If they are, they will be
They'll be
removed, and
removed
the
too?
area will be seeded, hayed, and brought back to a vegetated state.
Mercy, you can call on the rest of the board, please.
John Pickledy,
I have no questions.
Michael Joseph,
Yeah, is there going to be any type of screening in front of the, like, trees or shrubbery?
We did not propose any landscaping. The property, if you've been out there, Ridge Road is, there's almost nobody on there. We are back about 80 feet from the road, not from our front property line, but from the physical edge of the roadway. And there are some trees and vegetation there. We've had discussions with the neighbor about its location, and they've agreed to kind of work together to landscape that area, but we have not provided any formal landscaping on our plans.
That's all I have.
Richard LaRufa,
Just one question, and you may not be able to answer it, but you said you're proposing split systems for temperature control.
That's what I was told about 10 minutes before the meeting started.
Okay. The only question is, are you going to have some condensers mounted outside the building on concrete pads, and where are they, what side are they going to be? Is that going to affect your variance line,
If
or?
they are required, they will be on the side of the building, not on the street side, on our property side, in this area. And if they're there on the ground, we'll put some kind of landscaping buffer around it or a screen so that it's not visible from the neighbors. The closest neighbor is here, and actually between his dwelling and our proposed garage and where those mini splits would be, his garage sits. So his line of sight is already screened by his existing garage.
Dave, would they affect the variance requirements of locations for concrete pads?
Based on the offset to the side of the building, I don't believe it's going to be, because I believe they'll probably be someplace along the width of the building.
Right.
And not any closer.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Mark Scott,
The existing house has a two-car garage, correct?
That's right.
Have all the neighbors within the required radius been notified of this?
They have.
We're-
Yes, and we provided the notice requirements to the township as well, and I have them with us as well. If
And
necessary.
Glenn, so this question's for you, Glenn. So a C variance requires three things, correct? Can you tell me what those three things are? Proofs, correct?
Well, you have to prove the affirmative criteria and the negative criteria, and I think you're doing it as a C1 because there are practical difficulties in developing it because of topography. It was all the environmental testimony, so they have to prove that stuff. That was their, I'm just summarizing, I'm not making their case, I'm summarizing it, Mark. So that was the affirmative. Then on the negative criteria, they have to show that it will not negatively impact the public good or the zone plan or zone scheme, which is the zoning ordinance and other things for the area. And I think Mr. Graham did kind of talk about that, but if you had more questions about it, you could certainly ask him, Mr. Scott.
I was at the property this morning and I looked at it and I just, why, I understand the property's 50, 60 feet away from the road. Why isn't it farther, a little bit farther back? Why wouldn't that have worked?
Well, if we
If
push
it's
it
farther
further
back.
back, we want to be perpendicular to the driveway, right? So the driveway comes in on the plan. So as the driveway works into the property, it actually gets closer to that property line. We couldn't put it on the easterly side because of the location of the septic. So the garage has to be on the westerly side of the driveway. If we pushed it further back, we would get closer to the property line. And also, there's a stand of mature trees in this area that we're trying to save them. There's no reason to knock down the trees, just put it there when we have an area in the front. And again, it is, while it's in the front yard, it's about 80 feet from the pavement, and we are 10 feet from the closest corner, or the sideline. And the nearest structure is another garage, not a dwelling.
And essentially, we'd be increasing the size of the variance required, or the need of the variance required, if we did move it back.
Okay, thank you.
Landon Teneri.
I have no questions.
All right, then we could get to David's report, please.
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Just referring to the report I prepared dated March 7th, 2024. Mr. Graham has gone through a lot of the information, but I'll just highlight a few things if I may. On page 2, again, pointing out the variances, I included the existing non-conforming variances with regards to the house. It's my understanding that if the board is agreeable, they'll grant those variances just to preserve the rights of the applicant and take care of it that way. With regards to on the variance comments on item number 3, again, they mentioned most of them. I had called out the wetland comment on note number 8 because that was on Mr. Graham's plan, and I believe with the additional testimony that he provided tonight, based on the description of the wetlands and then going into a steep slope and the buffer area, the comfort area, I should say, that he's got with the transition area, it's not like we're to the nearest foot. So I feel more comfortable in that based on his testimony as far as the wetlands go. Then going over to page 3 on utilities, again, there's not going to be any water or sewage going to the proposed garage. The electric, we talked about that as far as the split system, so that's taken care of. And with regards to storm drainage, they are providing mitigation in the form of an interceptor unit that's going to be placed to catch the quote-unquote clean water by DEP requirements from the roof area of the proposed structure. Again, I recommended that if the board decides to grant an approval, that it make it subject to them conducting the necessary soil log and testing to verify the permeability that was assumed for the construction of that system, and also a maintenance manual be prepared just so the future owner and what have you, whoever has title to the property, knows what's involved with maintaining that and taking care of it. On page 4, again, with the architectural plans, they mentioned what they would be doing with the heat units. And then number 7 is the standard conditions as far as other approvals that they would need. The change to that would be item 7D, DEP approval, based on the testimony tonight that they have a buffer of about 200 extra feet to the wetland transition area. I don't think that would be necessary. That was really put in based on the comment number 8 that was on Mr. Graham's plan originally before he testified here tonight. And then as a usual comment number 8 for miscellaneous, we normally prefer and recommend that an as-built plan be prepared just to verify the offsets and all the construction if the board so approves the application.
If I might comment on that.
Sure.
On 7C, the Upper Delaware Soil Conservation District, as our plan stands today, we're less than 5,000 square feet, which would not trigger the permit requirement.
And if they are less than 5,000 square feet, I'm not saying they're not, that would be fine with me. I had included that in as a companion comment to D for DEP, because normally when you get those permits, they might want soil conservation.
Yep, understood. And certainly will apply to the Sparta Township for the building permits. The county health department for the dry well, as long as it's more than 50 feet from the septic system, I don't think they're going to give us a formal approval.
I would say if they would at least issue a letter to that effect, that would be
We'll
fine.
ask them for that. Fine.
Yes,
Thank you.
that would be fine.
Okay.
So, David, on page 2, you mentioned if we approve the application, recommend temporary shed be removed prior to building permit being issued for the proposed garage. So that would be a condition? The
Yes, sir.
applicant would be
That's
And I think we've already stated that those are not our structures, and we've asked the neighbor to remove them from our property.
The reason I suggest that, Mr. Chairman, in this case, and I'm not saying the applicant won't get it moved, I'm not saying that, but if you look at the map of the roughly 10-acre lot, That shed is at the other end of the property, and it's easy to forget that, if you will. And this way, if it's done and it's taken care of, they get their building permit, non-issue.
So Mr. Graham Bergner will have that as a condition in the potential approval. And also, David, on that page 3 with the soil log and soil testing, comments
Yes,
as
I
a
would,
condition too with that?
I'm good with if you'd make that a condition.
Condition too.
Normally what we do in a case like this, to do a test hole and what have you, you've got to mobilize some machinery and what have you to do the test hole. If they apply for the building permit, and when they mobilize the equipment to do the construction, they'll have the equipment on site. It saves money for the applicant, and we can verify it at that time.
All right, good.
And should the conditions not be as expected, we can modify that system to something, and we'll work that out with you.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Any other comments, David, or that's?
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Board members, any comments? None. If not, I'll open it to the public now. If anyone has any comments from the public, please come forward. Seeing none, it's now closed to the public. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the application.
Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Chairman, just briefly, I just wanted to touch base. If the board does look kindly upon our application, I would request that the application be made
Dan?
with a waiver.
We'll take care of it later.
Okay, thank you.
The chair will entertain a motion approving the application.
Can we make any more comments?
I had just said that, Mark, yeah, if you had any more comments before that, before we entertain a motion.
So I went and saw the property today, and I stood there, and it made a lot of sense to me, that to put this 3-car garage there, if this is what this gentleman wants to do. I did see a 2-car garage attached to the garage, so I don't understand why it's a hardship, or maybe I don't understand the definition of hardship, but, and then I got in the car and I turned around, and I know this is a very remote road, as it may be. It's a very quiet road. But then I drove around, and as I was exiting the property, I realized there's no other building remotely that close to Ridge Road. And it just seemed like it was out of character. And I was just wondering, if we have all these zoning rules, we have this master plan, why is it apparently rather, why do we allow these changes? And that's just, if we want to keep our buildings away from the road, and we make, and these are the zoning laws that we have, why do we say, oh, you want to put a 3-car garage there? You can do that. I just am trying to understand conceptually
So
where,
sometimes, Mark, with constraints to property, and they have to deviate people from the zoning ordinance. That's why we're here, to help them with the process, but it's always property constraints, different reasons, and that's why they come before this board, when they deviate from the ordinances. Try to help them as much as we can
okay, great.
from that.
That's a good answer. Thank you.
Any other board members? And again, the chair will entertain a motion approving the application. And someone wants to take it on, the chair will guide them through the process.
I make the motion.
Okay, John? All right.
Yeah. Go ahead. I didn't take the notes. You,
So
I
you'll
give you.
entertain the motion, so I'll make an addendum to your motion with the notes and everything. Okay?
Absolutely.
If you're okay with that. All
I'm
right.
good with that.
We'll have our board attorney prepare the resolution approving application 2-24, block 29001, lot 3, Richard Bark, to construct a 3-bay garage. And for the record, the pre-existing conditions are the following: the side yard right, where 50 feet is required, 37 is proposed. The side yard left, 50 feet required, 33.3 feet proposed. Lot frontage required 250, proposed 175, and lot width 250, proposed 175. For the variances, it's actually accessory building in the front yard, and also the side yard accessory building would be 4.4 feet variance. And then with the following conditions, the applicant adhered to all the points made from our board engineer David Simmons' report. Also, to provide as-built plans upon completion of the project by a licensed New Jersey land surveyor. Also, that the temporary sheds be removed. And one more, a soil log and soil testing be done in the area of the proposed dry well to confirm the groundwater level and soil suitability for the dry well. And that's according to all plans and testimonies submitted here tonight. Now, did I cover all the conditions and so forth,
I
Glenn?
had
or-
one more, I
One more?
thought, but maybe I was confused. Didn't you talk about some landscaping around the condensers or something?
Right,
No,
thought
they
that didn't,
the applicant brought it up and I think said that they would, if there were condensers, they would put it around it. I was talking more of the front and you said there
Right.
wasn't because there was vegetation from the road to the.
All right,
all right?
I thought I picked it up, I just wasn't sure. That's all.
So, Mr. Finkel, do you accept that addendum?
I do.
Do I have a second on that?
Second. I'm not
Melissa,
going
please
to
call.
repeat it all.
Marissa, please call the roll.
John Pinkledy,
Yes.
Michael Joseph,
Yes.
Richard LaRusso,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Abstain.
Landon Teneri,
Yes.
Kenneth Larry.
Yes. Your application's been approved, Mr. Glenn. Finch, you can tell him now when he was going to waive his
I
rights.
believe you were asking for something, Dan.
Waive his rights.
No waiver.
I'd like to request a waiver of a reading of the resolution so that my client can apply for the permits, obviously subject to the other conditions that were required prior to the settlement.
Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Second.
Second?
Just all in favor.
I like that all in favors, Glenn. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good luck.
Good evening.
I know.
No. Thanks, John.
Yeah, well, good at taking notes.
Okay,
Yep, thanks, Glenn.
you gonna end this and go into executive?
Yes. So thank you for everything tonight. Thank you too, David.
I'll be excused then, thank you.
There's no excuse for us.
There's no excuse for me, I guess, I don't know. Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Glenn.
Take care, Glenn.
Okay.
Cameras are executive session.
Should be right officially when Glenn steps out.
Yeah,
The
not yet.
the
We have to take a motion.
chair will entertain a motion going into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm getting like Glenn now. Thank you.
Don't say that.
Okay.
We're back into public hearing, seeing no one in the public to comment on any other items not on the agenda. It's now closed to the public, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion to adjourn?
Please,
Second.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good deal. Thank you.